At 5:12 in the afternoon on April 23, 2026, the 65th day of the war, and 11 days after Iran's largest failed swarm assault in the Strait of Hormuz, 42 contacts appear at once on the tactical displays of 3 U.S. Navy destroyers holding the Eastern Enforcement Line. Not missiles, not aircraft, boats, 42 Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps fast attack craft, launching from 4 separate Iranian positions within the same 90-second window. Bandar Abbas to the north, Keshem Island to the west, Larak Island to the east, Abu Musa to the south. 4 launch points, 4 converging axes, 42 boats moving between 52 and 58 knots, all driving toward the same stretch of water. Not a carrier, not a tanker, the blockade enforcement line itself. Every ship on station at the same time. This is not a harassment action, it is not a probing maneuver. It is not meant to test the American response. It is designed to break the geometry of the blockade by forcing 3 separate destroyers into 3 separate survival fights at the same moment, while a 4th wave bends through the gaps. The largest coordinated IRGC naval surface operation of the war, built not around firepower, but around arithmetic. Too many contacts, too many vectors, too little time. And if even one Iranian boat gets alongside one American destroyer with cameras rolling, Iran gets the image it has been trying to manufacture since the blockade began. The footage, the headline, the humiliation. That is the whole operation. In the Combat Information Center aboard USS Mahan, Commander Rachel Vance has had the departure pattern on her auxiliary display since 11:03 that morning, more than 6 hours before the contacts bloom on anyone's main tactical screen. She files a threat assessment at 11:26. She files a second at 1:58 in the afternoon, when the staggered launches from Bandar Abbas and Abu Musa begin aligning into a single attack window. She files a third at 4:09, when the spacing between the 4 departure groups stops looking like coincidence and starts looking like doctrine. All 3 assessments come back the same way. Logged and noted, logged and noted, logged and noted. At 5:12, 42 contacts appear, and for the first time in 9 days of blockade enforcement, Vance looks at the tactical math and understands that this is not about defeating the swarm everywhere. It is about stopping it at the one point where the line can break. 3 destroyers, 21 nautical miles of enforcement corridor, USS Mahan in the north, USS Gravely in the center, USS Forrest Sherman in the south, spread too far apart for immediate mutual support because that is what a blockade line in the Strait requires if it is going to cover the full shipping channel. The IRGC spent years studying that geometry. They do not need to sink every ship. They only need to overload one segment of the line badly enough that one cluster of surviving boats reaches visual range of an American hull. In propaganda terms, a boat 200 meters from a U.S. destroyer might as well be a strategic victory. In just 13 minutes, everything in this section of the Strait of Hormuz is going to come down to engagement sequencing, inventory discipline, and whether one commander who was ignored for 6 hours prepared anyway. To understand what Iran has built at 5:12 in the afternoon, you have to understand what a 4-axis swarm does to a dispersed blockade line. This is not a dense carrier strike group with overlapping defensive rings and concentrated missile capacity. This is 3 destroyers distributed across open water, each committed to a separate sector, each forced to fight its own engagement in real time. The northern axis is driving toward Mahan. The central western axis is pressing Gravely. The southern axis is bending toward Forrest Sherman. And the 4th axis from Abu Musa is not heading straight at any ship at all. It is angling for the seam between center and south, the exact place where mutual support breaks down and command hesitation becomes lethal. Under standard conditions, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer carries enough layered defensive capacity to defeat a fast attack swarm of this size in pieces. Standard conditions are sequential. Standard conditions give you clean approach angles, reaction depth, and formation overlap. Standard conditions do not involve 42 fast attack craft arriving in synchronized compression against a line stretched over 21 nautical miles with 4 distinct vectors and one deception axis aimed at the gap. The IRGC is not attacking a ship. It is attacking the spacing. At 5:12 and 16 seconds, Commander Vance keys the formation circuit. Mahan to all blockade units. 4-axis swarm confirmed. Count 42. Main pressure north, center, south, with seam penetration attempt between center and south. Do not collapse line. Repeat, do not collapse line. Engage your own sectors. Gap axis is the objective. She does not ask permission. There is no time. Gravely acknowledges first. Gravely copies. Holding center. Forrest Sherman comes back 2 seconds later. Sherman copies. Holding south. Mahan begins the first engagement sequence at 5:12 and 29 seconds. 6 ESSMs against the lead elements of the northern package. The first intercepts occur at 5:13 and 41. 3 clean kills. 2 boats damaged. 1 survives untouched and keeps charging. Vance does not waste time admiring the result. She shifts immediately to the second tier and orders follow-on fire on the next 6 contacts in the northern stack. 4 more kills. 1 partial, 1 miss. In less than 2 minutes, Mahan has reduced its immediate problem, but not solved it. 7 northern contacts are still moving. 5 at full speed, 2 damaged. All inbound. In the center sector, Gravely's first salvos are effective, but not decisive. 10 contacts were assigned to the western axis. After the first exchanges, 6 are still operational. In the south, Forrest Sherman gets the worst geometry of all. The southern boats are approaching lower and wider, forcing harder solutions and longer tracking corrections. Sherman's opening performance, Sauer, is weaker than the north and center. 8 southern contacts remain active after the first missile phase. And then the fourth axis shows what it was really for. At 5:15, 7 boats from the Abu Musa package break away from their original line and accelerate into the seam between Gravely and Forrest Sherman. Not enough to overwhelm a full destroyer on their own, more than enough to exploit a hesitation, confuse responsibilities, and force one of the 2 ships to choose between protecting its own sector and sealing the gap. That is the attack. That was always the attack. The north and center and south are not the decisive point. The gap is. Vance sees it on the display the instant the vector changes. The IRGC spent the first 3 minutes making the line burn inventory. Now they are going after the seam. At 5:15 and 18 seconds, she transmits again. Mahan to Gravely and Sherman. Abu Musa package committing seam penetration. Gravely holds center contacts. Sherman holds south contacts. I will take long-range seam support when north clears. She says it like a fact, not a suggestion, because the window to make that decision is already closing. By 5:16 in the afternoon, the situation across the line has compressed. Northern axis, 5 active contacts inside 6 nautical miles. Center axis, 6 active contacts inside 5 nautical miles. Southern axis, 8 active contacts inside 6 nautical miles. Seam axis, 7 active contacts crossing toward the center-south gap at 54 knots. 26 fast attack craft still moving. 4 battles at once. 3 destroyers. 21 nautical miles. No margin. Mahan shifts to gunfire at 5:16 and 09 seconds. The MK-45 opens on the lead northern contact. First round, hit. Second round, catastrophic fire. 1 boat dead in the water. The second target takes a near immediate follow-up. Hit. Stops. A third contact breaks right, tries to spoil the gun solution, fails. Another hit. Northern package reduced again. But every shell Vance fires north is a shell she may need south in less than 2 minutes. In the center corridor, Gravely's gunfire clears 2 boats in 40 seconds, but 4 remain, and the seam package is now close enough to become its own problem. Gravely cannot abandon center to chase the gap without letting surviving center contacts through. In the south, Forrest Sherman is bleeding engagement efficiency. The approach angle is forcing extra bursts, extra corrections, extra seconds. 8 southern boats become 6, then 5, but not fast enough. Not fast enough for the math. At 5:17 and 22 seconds, Forrest Sherman transmits what nobody on the line wants to hear. Sherman to formation. South inventory falling faster than planned. 5 south contacts inside 4 nautical miles. Seam group entering support shadow. Requesting fire assignment clarification. That is exactly what the IRGC built this for. The moment when 2 ships are close enough to share a problem, but too busy to share a solution. Vance does not wait for a higher headquarters answer that will arrive too late to matter. Mahan to Sherman. You own south. Gravely owns center. Seam packages mine when north clears. Maintain line. 3 words decide the engagement. Maintain the line. If one ship leaves its station to solve another ship's problem, the blockade opens, and the operation succeeds, even if every Iranian boat burns afterward. At 5:18, Mahan clears its last northern full-speed contact. 2 damaged boats remain drifting or barely moving, but the northern attack is effectively dead for the next critical minute. That minute is all Vance needs. She shifts both available guns and long-range support calculations to the seam axis. Range, 10.7 nautical miles, 7 boats. Speed, 54 knots. Time to the gap, under 3 minutes. At 5:18 and 24 seconds, Mahan fires on the lead seam contact at maximum effective range. The shell flight feels longer than it is. It lands at 5:18 and 46. Direct hit. Lead boat erupts, loses momentum, slews sideways. The second round follows 11 seconds later against the next boat in line. Hit. Fire amidships. Stops. The seam package keeps coming, but now its spacing is ruined. 2 kills have turned a rush into a funnel, and funnels are easier to kill than swarms. Gravely sees the compression and joins with its own Mk-45 on the 3rd seam contact while still managing its center survivors. 1 hit, 1 disabled. 4 seam boats remain. In the south, Forrest Sherman has 4 contacts inside 3 nautical miles. Its CIWS activates at 5:19 and 03 seconds. The first burst misses. The second walks onto the target's engine block. Kill. 3 southern contacts remain. 1 veers wide. 2 stay committed. At 5:19 and 41 seconds, the seam axis reaches the edge of the center-south gap. 4 boats are still moving. If even one gets through the seam at speed, cameras on the Iranian side will have the clip they came for. Vance has 1 opening left. Mahan to Gravely. Shift 1 mount to seam lead. Gravely answers instantly, shifting. 2 destroyers fire into the same 4-boat seam package from different bearings. The first impact tears through the lead craft and leaves it burning. The second catches the trailing boat and shears off speed. The third boat tries to break south into Sherman's shadow. Sherman's phalanx catches it at close range and turns it into spray and flame 900 meters off the bow. 1 seam contact remains. 1. It is still moving at 47 knots, damaged, but moving. And now it is less than 80 seconds from crossing directly into the open water between Gravely and Sherman. At 5:20 and 31 seconds, Commander Vance gives the order she has been holding in reserve since the first display correlation at 11:03 that morning. Mahan to all units. Seam contact is priority target. I repeat, priority target. Everything else holds. Kill the seam. Sherman cannot help. It still has 2 boats on its own doorstep. Gravely is tied to 2 surviving center contacts inside 2 nautical miles. Only Mahan has the angle. Only Mahan has the second of freedom required to take it. The bowgun fires at 5:20 and 44. Range just over 9 nautical miles. 1 shell. The round lands at 5:21 and 02. Hit. Clean hit. The last seam boat loses speed instantly, slews left, and stops short of the gap. The decisive point of the whole Iranian operation dies in 1 shot. Now the rest is killing what is left before anything desperate gets lucky. Sherman's CIWS clears the nearest southern contact at 5:21 and 11. The final southern boat takes a 5-inch hit 27 seconds later and stops at 410 meters from the destroyer's hull. In the center, Gravely finishes its last active contact at 5:21 and 49. 1 damaged boat is still floating but no longer tactically relevant. At 5:22 and 06 seconds, the southern corridor is clear. At 5:22 and 11, the center corridor is clear. And at 5:22 and 19, with Mahan's final gun engagement against a crippled northern drifter, the entire enforcement line is clear. 42 IRGC fast attack craft, 28 destroyed outright, 10 disabled and floating, 4 dead in the water and abandoned. None reach an American hull, none break the blockade line, none get the image the operation was built to create. From 5:12 to 5:22 and 19 seconds, the largest 4-axis IRGC surface swarm of the war has come and gone in 10 minutes and 19 seconds. In the CIC aboard USS Mahan, Commander Rachel Vance looks at the display in silence. 42 contacts at 5:12, 0 tactical threats at 5:22, 10 minutes, 19 seconds. She picks up the formation circuit. Mahan to all blockade units. Corridor status. Gravely answers first, center clear. Seam neutralized. Sherman responds 3 seconds later. South clear. Closest contact 410 meters. IWS and gunfire stopped both. Vance acknowledges with 4 words. Hold your stations, maintain line. She does not say anything else. She does not need to. At 5:37 in the afternoon, aboard the flagship supervising the blockade group, Rear Admiral Mercer reads the engagement summary and stops at one section that is not about missiles, not about gunfire, not about boat counts, not about ranges. It is about 3 threat assessments filed from USS Mahan at 11:26 in the morning, 1:58 in the afternoon, and 4:09. All 3 identified the same pattern, 4 launch points. Timed convergence, seam penetration attempt between center and south. All 3 came back the same way, logged and noted. Mercer picks up the circuit to Mahan. Commander Vance, explain to me how you called the seam before the first course break. Vance looks at the display again. The departure arcs from Abu Musa, the spacing between the Bandar Abbas and Larak departures, the timing offsets. The way 4 separate packages made no sense unless one of them was never intended to hit a ship directly. Sir, the north, center, and south vectors were pressure packages. The Abu Musa vector was never aligned for a clean ship intercept. It was aligned for the interval between Gravely and Sherman. The purpose was not hull kill probability. The purpose was line fracture. I assessed it in the first report, refined it in the second, confirmed it in the third, and planned for it from 11:03 this morning. When the contacts appeared at 5:12, I had been planning the engagement for 6 hours and 9 minutes. Mercer is quiet for a moment. Then he asks the only question that matters. Your assessments were logged and noted. Yes, sir, all 3. Then why did you prepare as if they had been accepted? Vance answers without hesitation. Because logged and noted is not the same as wrong. Mercer does not speak for 4 seconds. Then he sets down the summary and looks back at the after-action image feed from the Strait of Hormuz. Burning boats, disabled boats, empty wakes, 3 destroyers still on station, the line intact, the corridor open, the blockade holding. The image Iran wanted that afternoon was simple: an American line broken in open water. One surviving IRGC fast attack craft racing through the seam. Cameras capturing chaos around a U.S. destroyer. Proof, or the appearance of proof, that a swarm could crack the blockade if enough boats hit enough angles at once. That is not the image Iran got. The image it got was 4 destroyed seam boats scattered across the water where the operation was supposed to break through. It got 42 fast attack craft committed across 4 axes and not one reaching a U.S. hull. It got 3 destroyers still holding their exact sectors after the largest coordinated IRGC surface assault of the war. And it got a commander aboard USS Mahan who had identified the decisive point 6 hours before anyone else needed to believe her. Iran launched 42 fast attack boats to overwhelm the blockade by attacking the spacing instead of the ships. It built the math carefully. It chose the timing carefully. It sent pressure north, center, and south so the line would burn inventory. It bent a 4th wave into the seam because that was the one place the geometry could crack. But the lesson of the Strait of Hormuz at 5:12 in the afternoon on May 3, 2026, is the same lesson commanders relearn in every war when somebody smart is ignored early and proven right late. The most dangerous thing in that section of the Strait that day was not 42 fast attack craft moving at 58 knots. It was a commander who saw the seam at 11:03 in the morning, filed 3 threat assessments that came back logged and noted, and planned the whole engagement anyway because the math said the attack was coming and the math was right.